and support. So we've got a great range of experts and also your peers on a panel, but also in discussions through that, just to understand practically what more you can do to look at how we as businesses respond to the climate crisis. And the second thing, I think, obviously, given what we're trying to do more broadly around policy and around engagement and influence, is obviously talk about the collective position of social enterprise and the ability of social enterprise really to respond to the climate emergency. We've got already some good data on that. So for those of you that read the State of Social Enterprise survey that we published in September last year, Capitalism in Crisis, if you haven't, I'd strongly encourage you to download a copy and share that and promote that. But we looked there for the first time really at how social enterprises were performing against mainstream SMEs around a few indicators on the environment, and had some good data there, I think, in terms of social enterprises kind of outperforming social enterprises in outperforming mainstream businesses rather, both in terms of the number that are actively aiming to minimize environmental impact. So 88% of social enterprises are actively looking to do that. The percentage that have an increased focus on sustainability and environmental friendliness, so 65% looking at that. And also being 3 times as likely to consider environmental factors on a procurement level than mainstream businesses are. So some kind of strong early indicators, but also I think we know very well that it's a very mixed picture within the sector in terms of somewhere we've got some real leadership and real leaders. 5% of our membership have got environment embedded within their purpose and mission for what they exist. But we'd like to see that figure kind of raised a lot higher. What we'd like to be able to do is to present the social enterprise sector not just as kind of doing slightly better or than social enterprises, than mainstream businesses in this space, but be able to demonstrate clearly that these are, we as a movement, we as a sector are, absolute best in class when it comes to how a business, whatever sector it happens to belong to within its individual industry, we are best in class where it comes to responding to the environmental emergency. And we know that given the nature of the people that you are, the nature of the people that run social enterprises, that the willingness is there, and hopefully through today and through further work in this area, we can both help you individually, but also you can help us collectively to make that case for why we're kind of really best in class in this space and how we do that effectively. So this is a first step in that direction, or an early step in that direction, and we hope it's a useful and practical event, and we hope that this acts as a real springboard for us to do more in this area. As I said, we've got a great range of speakers and panels. We've also got lots of opportunity for you to discuss in your own groups and network and talk to each other about what's going on. And we'll also be continuing the discussion later on our online forum after this event closes in about an hour's time. So thank you very much for attending. I hope you find it really useful. I'm going to hand over to Emily Darko, our Director of Research, who's done a great job helping to pull us together, who's just going to introduce each of the speakers and talk you through how the day's going to run. But thank you very much for your attendance, and yeah, it should be a great session.
Thanks very much, Charlie. So we're going to hear from 5 people. Please, you are all going to speak for 5 minutes, and when your time is up, I am going to pop the slide of the next person up on the screen to kind of keep things moving. Everyone else, if you've got questions for the panelists, please could you pop them in the chat? And when all 5 panelists have spoken, we'll have a few minutes for Q&A at that point. If your question doesn't get answered, then don't worry. There's a breakout session, 10 minutes following that Q&A. And then, as Charlie mentioned, we'll be on the SE UK forum for half an hour from 3. So there's plenty of opportunity to catch up with those panelists if we can't get to your question in the session. So I would like to start by handing over to Hannah Martin at Green New Deal. Thanks, Hannah.
Thanks, Emily. Hi, everyone. Yeah, my name's Hannah. I'm the co-executive director of Green New Deal UK. We are a fairly new organisation aiming to organise local communities to campaign for a Green New Deal. And I was kind of asked to speak about what a Green New Deal is. It's an idea that's kind of gained a lot more visibility, partly because of the taking up of it via various sections of the progressive democratic party in the US in recent years, through figures like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. But I suppose I wanted to share a bit of like what it means for me. I actually grew up in Wakefield, and I suppose it's an obvious message for many of you here, but you know, we are facing a bit of a crisis near to where I grew up in Doncaster this year. There was flooding, people were forced to flee their homes. Wakefield's also suffering a kind of unemployment crisis, has been severely hit by a decade of austerity. And I suppose my own experience has been about thinking about how the climate crisis is very much linked to a crisis of our economy, and to a crisis of inequality. You know, the reality is that whilst many people in this room, virtual space, have the kind of privilege, and myself included, of thinking about the end of the world kind of during a webinar, most people, the focus is on the end of the month. For many more still, it's about just getting through to the end of the day, because at the same time as the temperature's rising, you know, we have an economy that's failing the majority of people, really. You know, we're the 5th richest country in the world, but 14 million live in poverty. 1 in 5, that's 1 in 5 people, majority of which are families. 10,000 people a year die because of fuel poverty, and life expectancy is stalling for the first time in decades. So I suppose one of the central innovations, I think, of the Green New Deal is to move the concept of climate change out of a kind of purely environmental conservation space and to see it as an economic issue, as a social issue. The history of this idea is based on the New Deal. I'm sure many of you know about that, a massive series of kind of programs, public work projects, and crucially financial reforms, where power was taken away from kind of big banking companies, and regulation was enacted by Roosevelt in the 1930s in response to the Great Depression. Fast forward to the financial crisis of 2008, vast sums of money thrown at the banks. People started to be like, could we be doing this differently? There was a group of thinkers who came together, Caroline Lucas, Anne Pettifor and others, to put forward the idea of a Green New Deal, a mass investment programme over a 10-year period, which would simultaneously help us decarbonise at the rate which we needed, but also provide good quality, well-paid jobs and reduce inequality. Fast forward another 10 years, the idea didn't gain any traction at the time, apart from in some policy circles. And the Sunrise Movement in the USA picked up the idea of the Green New Deal. Oh, I don't know if someone was unmuted there for a second. Sorry if you didn't hear me. And I just wanted to explain in brief terms what the Green New Deal means. It is this ambitious idea that we need an investment-led programme to get us out of where we are. To put it in context, the $3 billion that was announced, was it last week or the week before, I've lost track, by Rishi Sunak towards home insulation, good step. To put it in context, many people believe we need 25 billion a year to be invested in the transition to the green economy for the next 3 years at least. And that's to meet a net zero target of 2050, which many believe to be too slow and not in line with our global responsibility to tackle climate change, given the scale of emissions that we've historically been responsible for, both as a country and through colonialism. So we have got to scale up and speed up decarbonisation, but we also have to recognise that, like I said, for most people in the communities they live in, they're experiencing a drop-off in life quality, even more so due to the upcoming worst recession we're about to hit in decades. So actually we need to do it in a way that creates and regenerates communities, by creating millions of well-paid, secure, unionised jobs across the country in places that need it, rather than just by propping up the same multinational corporations that have benefited from, rising inequality for many, many years. For us, it means we need to transform our economy so that the financial system serves the needs of people and planet. That means looking at things like community wealth building, thinking about devolution, thinking about regulating the banks properly, and I suppose the final thing I would say is that for us, it's really important that we promote global justice. So we think about what it means to decarbonise fairly in line with timeframes set out by science, but also to make sure we do our fair share. And then finally, I was asked to think about, what does the Green New Deal mean for social enterprises? I suppose I don't have a definitive answer. I think it's a series of questions for individual businesses to consider. it's questions from the very beginning of like, does your business and its supply chain have a decarbonisation plan? Like, do you have that? You know, how are you working with local councils to ensure that wealth that's created is maintained within community, so it's not just outsourced to bigger corporations? How are you using your influence as businesses and in the business community to push for more investment and faster investment from the government? Like I said, 3 billion, it's something, it's very much not where we need to be. And actually, you know, we're very much off meeting our targets, and investment is one of the ways in which we can kind of hold government's feet to the fire and say, you know, you're not putting your money where your mouth is. We don't have enough to decarbonise at the rate we need to. I suppose also considering how we promoting concepts that could increase social equality and wage structures. Are we considering things like the 4-day working week within how we, you know, develop our business models? And I suppose from a storytelling perspective, how are we reimagining what a low carbon future looks and feels like for our customers, our staff, our partners? You know, we need to think about what the jobs of the future are going to be. There's actually a whole host of like low carbon Green New Deal jobs that no one ever thinks about. People think it's just installing solar panels, but actually investing in a national care service, you know, care work is traditionally extremely low carbon, would create, I think the Women's Budget Group did a thing recently, you know, would create many more jobs than the same amount of money invested in the construction industry. Now, one of those is much lower carbon, and if those jobs are valued properly and paid properly and considered to be really good jobs, how much more could we, you know, invest in our local communities and solve the social care crisis? So I think it's thinking creatively about what low carbon jobs look like, where are they needed, and how can we create them? You know, I would end by saying, I think that now is a perfect time for us to be having this conversation. You know, there's a lot of conversations about green recovery. We launched a campaign recently called Build Back Better with over 100 other organisations. We're still open to other collaborations on that campaign if people are interested. And I think that the polls show that climate concern amongst the UK public is at an all-time high, and the appetite for shifting our financial systems and investing in public services and not just returning to more austerity is at an all-time high. And it's kind of up to all of us to do what we can to promote an investment-led Green New Deal approach to this sort of recession crisis we're about to face in every way that we can, really. So I'd probably end there. I don't know if I'm near my 5 minutes or...
That's brilliant. Thank you very much, Hannah. 5 minutes goes very quickly when you're talking. Some really useful context and initial thoughts for us. We're now going to go to the first of our SD UK Social Enterprise member speakers. So over to you, Davey at Skillmill, please.
Thanks, Emily. Hopefully you can all hear me okay. I've chosen to come outside because, you know, the theme's obviously the environment and climate change. I'm hoping that the climate doesn't impact on this next 5 minutes and I don't have to run for shelter. But yeah, so I'm from the Skillmill. I'm the managing director there. Skillmill has been running for the past 7 years or so. One of the difficulties that we had early on with the Skillmill was defining our mission. We had long debates about how we do that, because essentially we do a lot of things and we're trying to do a lot of things very well. We employ young people who are ex-offenders. We provide environmental maintenance services, and we also have a very strong kind of environmental ethos around the organisation. And a lot of our partners were very concerned about the message. So that people need a very simple message. For example, the Skillmill helps ex-offenders, full stop. Because that's something which people will want to invest in. Or the Skillmill provides maintenance services. Keep it simple, and that should be the message. Forget about the fact that they happen to be ex-offenders. The Skillmill is an environmental organisation that supports environmental benefit for the wider community. Leave it at that. And we thought that was didn't really reflect well the full range of what we do. So we have decided very early on that we would include all of those things. So we're an organisation that helps young people who are involved in the justice system. And we are an organisation that provides environmental improvement services. And we have a very broad environmental mission. And we've tried to do that as best we can. And with all of that, you know, you have to be authentic. So it's, you know, it's important that, and especially when it comes to young people, because they can immediately tell when something's fake, you know. So it's a real job. It's a full-time job that we provide for young people, and it lasts for 6 months. So that's very clear. And they get, you know, training, which is quality training. They get access to the wider labour market and make progress in terms of next step jobs. But essentially, for the young people, it has to be jobs which they can meaningfully undertake, which is within their skill set. So they're very low skilled environmental improvement jobs that we do. And consequently, the young people can engage with that. They can undertake those tasks. They get a lot of reward from doing it. But what we discovered quite quickly, because the partnership we set up with the Environment Agency kind of kicked things off back in 2013, but we actually discovered quite quickly what the young people really enjoyed most about the work wasn't the skills that were being developed. It wasn't the pay they were receiving, although they were important. It was the contact they were having with nature, which was having a very positive impact on their physical and mental health. And that's not something that we expected at all. So that has formed a really important strand of what we're doing. So we're talking to the young people about the experience of being working outdoors, working and having close contact with nature, and how that is actually practically making a positive impact on their lives, as well as the reduction in the reoffending rates that we see with the young people that are coming through the program. So we are always looking to develop that side of things. So it's it's a 100% focus of ours is around our environmental impact, and not just the impact in terms of criminal justice outcomes. So we are almost entirely paperless. We use virtually no paper in our operations, with the exception of we've started producing our own paper, which is kind of ironic, but it's made from pulp. It's seed paper, and we want to actually start selling that paper. So we're paperless apart from the paper we produce. We also have, during COVID, had to stop what we're doing completely. So we halted operations in all of the locations we work in England. And we started to source PPE for ourselves, and discovered that we were faced with quite high costs around face masks and hand sanitizer. So we looked to other partners and discovered that actually we could ourselves start to produce face masks, which we've been doing since April. And so far we have produced round about 3,000 face masks. Some of them are now available through Social Enterprise UK. So I'll have to give a big thank you to Peter and Charlie and the team of Social Enterprise UK who supported us with that venture. So that's an example. Sorry?
I said that's a pleasure to support you, and I'm afraid that is your 5 minutes. So if you have a last word, that's great.
Thank you very much.
Thanks very much. I'm sorry, the 5 minutes does go quickly, but I'm keen to make sure we have time to fit everything in. Thank you. And obviously questions for Davey in the chat or on the forum afterwards. For our next speaker, please, SIBUSISO at Cognitive Paths. Thank you.
I unmute there. Hi. I don't think I have any Oh yeah, there you go. There's a good slide. It was really great to hear Hannah talk about Wakefield. You know, I think that's where I when I first came to the UK about 12 years ago. My friends told me to go to Wakefield, and I had no idea where I was going until I got there, just behind the Morrison. So yeah, it's really good to connect through Social Enterprise UK, really, and equally, I think for me, I'm really seeing through these facilitations and through this discussion a lot of growth that has taken place in terms of what social enterprises are aiming to do, and equally we can see the challenges that social enterprises have been trying to address that seemingly larger organizations have not managed to really address, which is really great to see. So a little bit about Cognitive Paths. Cognitive Paths provides administrative, marketing, and project management support to individuals and organizations that have got aspirational desires. So what does that mean in a nutshell? If someone wants to start a business, normally we just advise them not to go ahead and go register on Companies House. We just say, first, let's help you to manage this thing that you're trying to grow. Let's develop a market for you, and let's support you as much as we can with the grants work, the getting people together, the surveys, all of those different things. And our main beneficiaries, since we started, is mainly Black men, and we focus on about 4 areas. So we focus on criminal justice, education, employment, and sports. I say sports because mainly around social prescribing. And just like, in the last speaker there from Skill Mill, is the challenge of really having to explain what you're doing to funders that normally like you just to do like one linear thing, when what you're trying to address is a very collaborative and cross-sector approach. It really has not made our funding potential any beneficial. So for that sense, we've been about 75% trade, just because grants have really not been our main strength. I started about 4 years ago as one person. Fast became 2 within a year, and we are now at 10 payroll employees and about six volunteers. We've seen a great demand with our projects, and our projects in education have been, about addressing diversifying the curriculum, which is called One Bristol Curriculum, and that looks at the whole stretch of the curriculum. So math, science, geography, and it's not just history. It's math, science, geography, PHSE, RE, all of those. And we've been working with over 26 teachers and 10 different schools in terms of developing diverse schemes of work. And it's a 12 benchmark thing. So it's not just about the curriculum. The curriculum is just the main topic, but we're looking at leadership, we're looking at retention, and we're looking at everything else. Now, if I can tell you how small these projects started, and that's just the capacity that they're running, it's really been unbelievable. And then in terms of skills, one of the things that we've been looking at is, previously, as I mentioned about Wakefield, I came here on a 2-year work visa, and when that expired, I lost my right to work. But in that right to work, I had to find ways to still live. And that's when, I was more into the black economy or the cash economy. And I realized really the challenges that people face whilst they're in the cash economy, and what that means in terms of their livelihood, the inequalities that they face, no access to services and so forth. So once I resolved that, the key thing for us has really been about how do we support people to really be in sustainable work. And we find that sustainable work without grants is probably more within procurements. So for that reason, we've always had a focus on how do we support businesses to scale, Black businesses to scale, so that they're able to take on commissions and procurement, so that they can have sustainable work, be good employers, and take on apprenticeships and be able to really lead in the things that in the things that they can lead in. And great work from SEUK with the regional reports, because nothing in that report for me has really been surprising. You find that most of the sectors are more focused on supporting young people than supporting ex-offenders, and yet we've got the second worst prison in the UK is based here. And when we do a survey with our ex-offenders, so we really love working with lived experience, and our project in prisons has been working with ex-offenders to work with current offenders, so it's real to real. I'm not an ex-offender. What can I tell an ex-offender? But if I bring them an ex-offender who's now a mentor, who's changed their life, who's running a business, that's really someone that they could listen to. So that's really been our focus. And I guess with all of that, it's really been hard to focus on the environmental issues, because the way that we see the environmental issues is not really about the greenery and everything else. Although that's what I used to do when I was in Wakefield, is selling loft cavity and insulations. That was just as a job, but it's really been about supporting people to have sustainable work, to be in control of their destination through their enterprise, and for them to be the future employers. And that, our projects have been that, from one Bristol curriculum to the project about procurement with SEUK and our partners. And now we also are branching out our media program, which is Black History Month, into an all year round program, looking at digital marketing, creative media, content creation, all of that stuff. And, these are projects that started off with 2 people that just had an aspiration, and we've just been scaling up projects slowly and steadily. So we really haven't had the opportunity to think about wider environmental impacts and how we can really, have that difference, because our priorities have been really, as Hannah was expressing, about food on the plates, work, health, those sort of things. So to get into the space where we can think about the environment, or think about the environment in terms of what we use, our lighting and things like that, we're really not yet in that space, and we'd like to be in that space, but that space really requires capacity, and that space really requires a focus on it. Right now, our focus has been on other things. So I'll leave it at that point, just to say it's an aspiration for us, but it's currently not something that we have really committed any wider thought on.
Thanks, Sib, that's fantastic. And we asked you to speak because we think that your position in terms of climate is very familiar to a lot of social enterprises, and it's something that's going to be fundamental for us to address and support on. Thank you very much. Moving now to Gary at Community Shop.
Hi there, everyone. Thanks so much for the invitation. I've set myself a timer, and I'm going to try and whistle through 6 little points to introduce Community Shop to you. I was asked to introduce Community Shop with our environmental and social impact. So our story starts about 50 years ago, and I'm not going to go into a huge long story, but if food waste was a nation, it will be the 3rd largest emitter of greenhouse gas in the world. So in the UK, last year, we wasted about 240,000 tonnes of food in the retail part of the supply chain, about 1.6 million tonnes in the manufacturing part of the supply chain, about 7 million tonnes in our homes. A company shop started 50 years ago, I'd like to say with a vision to create an environmental impact, but we were started in Barnsley, and it was 50 years ago. So we were started because where there's muck, there's brass. 50 years on, with 1,000 staff over around 30 UK locations, and we rescue about 80 million tonnes of surplus stock from the manufacturing part of the supply chain. So to give you a picture of that, this is not stuff that comes from the back of stores. This is 120 pallets of stock that have been mislabeled in a warehouse. To set that in context, that amount of surplus stock would create, if it was sent to waste, about 111 tonnes of CO2, probably the equivalent of 49,000 cars on the road, taken off the road if you save it, and about £2.5 million worth of landfill tax. So rescuing that food and repurposing it through our membership stores in factory sites to give members of staff who work in the food industry great access to retail stores on their staff sites has a huge environmental impact. But about 9 years ago, I was brought on board because the chairman of the business was wrestling with two challenges. The first is, why do we still waste over 1 million tonnes of stock each year, and why is there 1 million people going to food banks? So we spent the first year trying to fundamentally wrestle with what's the question that we seek to answer as an organisation. And we came to the understanding that the question that we sought to answer was, why do human beings eat food? And that human beings eat food not because we need to get calories to take us from one week to the next, but because of this thing that anthropologists call commensality. That the act of putting food and drink on a table and sharing together is one that makes us fundamentally human and helps us to be the best version of ourselves. We also recognise, number three, that our impact context sat in the middle of three systems. So there was the global food system, there was the economic and welfare system, and there was the fast-moving food retail system. And the thing which people call food poverty sits at the intersection of those three systems. However, you can't seek to offer some kind of impact around the area that you focus on if you don't recognise that you operate in three large systemic contexts. We developed a vision that fundamentally we existed to build strong individuals and confident communities through the power of food. And we did that by creating the UK's first social supermarket. So we started 8 years ago. We now have 6 social supermarkets in London, Yorkshire, Grimsby, the North West and Liverpool. We employ about 70 staff across those. And in each of our community shops, we have 3 spaces. We have a community store where we have 800 to 900 product lines, which retail at about 30% of the retail price for those experiencing food hardship and food insecurity. We have a community hub that runs 11 different personal development programs to help people get to grips with what are the challenges that they're facing and how can they live out the best version of themselves overcoming those challenges. And through that model, we have around 300 trained community mentors who go out and connect together with about 7,000 people in their communities. And we have a community kitchen, which is a cookery school and eating space. And in those stores, we serve around 25,000 individuals with food access and the skills and resources that they need. Finally, our impact model, I guess this is true for all of us, but we seek to work across multiple areas of systemic change, influencing up in terms of policy change, influencing out in terms of the breadth of the impact that we can offer, and influencing down in terms of being able to offer the greatest impact that we can to the people who need it most in the communities that we serve. And I've got 10 seconds left.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for keeping to time. And last but not least, we're going to go to Jackie at PwC.
Hi, everybody. I hope you can hear me okay. Right, I too have set my timer, so let's do this. My name is Jackie Machin, and I'm a sustainability and climate change consultant at PwC. And so that means I usually work with really big businesses on their climate strategies. But right now, and for the past year, I've been seconded to an organisation called the World Business Council for Sustainable Development, and there I'm working with 40 different multinational businesses, and we're setting out a vision for a more sustainable and more equitable world, and trying to work out what the role of businesses is to get us to that better world by 2050. So I thought I could give a perspective on why big businesses are actually on the climate issue, and I think a lot of those reasons are also very applicable for social enterprises. And I'll quickly take you through our kind of PwC's own climate journey. And then finally, I'll cover some thoughts on how big businesses and social enterprises might be able to work together on this climate challenge. So firstly, why are big businesses interested in the climate? I think they often look at this as a risk and opportunity, sort of through a risk and opportunity lens. So risks can be split into the physical risks of climate change, things like your premises might flood or your supply chains might be disrupted by extreme weather in other parts of the world. And then there are transition risks of climate change. And these are things like Hannah was talking about earlier, if a Green New Deal comes in, there might be higher taxes on energy, and would that cause issues to your business model? And then on the opportunities side, there are lots of opportunities for lowering costs. They're really kind of obvious things like saving energy will mean you have lower energy bills. But there are also other things, other opportunities that businesses are really keen to take advantage of. So innovating some new low carbon products might give you a competitive advantage. There's also the opportunity to build better relationships with some of your stakeholders. So we've all seen young people in particular calling for climate action. And if those young people are your clients or your customers, your potential employees, then acting on climate can help build trust and loyalty with those kinds of stakeholders. So that's kind of from a risk and opportunity standpoint why big businesses might care about climate. But I always like to bring in a final point here, which is that people who work in big businesses are people as well, and a lot of the time they genuinely just want to do the right thing because they care about the kind of world which we're going to leave to future generations. So that can often mean that they make the kind of decisions which are going to do the right thing. So I think a lot of those reasons for acting on climate can equally apply to social enterprises as well as big businesses. So all of those kinds of reasons encouraged PwC to start acting on its climate and its carbon footprint in 2007. And by last year, our carbon emissions had come down by 90%. So this is our carbon emissions purely in the energy we use in our buildings. We managed to cut those through a range of different methods, and I don't think there's time to cover all of those right now, but we've got a really useful document on our website called Acting on Carbon Lessons Learned, if you want to go and check that out. And we found some amazing benefits to this. So we saved over £20 million in energy costs in the first 10 years. And we've also found that it's been really good for employee engagement. And we've had some quite cool networking opportunities. People come to our offices to try and learn about green buildings. And that gives us an opportunity to, get to know different people and set up different collaborations. So that's been a really positive journey for us. So a couple of thoughts on how that's relevant for you guys as social enterprises. I've seen loads of corporates this year setting targets around net zero, and you might have seen this in the news. And usually what that means is more than just reducing energy usage from their own buildings, for example. They want to get their value chains down to zero carbon as well. So any companies which are in the value chain of a large corporate that's set a net zero target like this might find that that company is at the very least asking you to measure your carbon footprint, and they might be moving towards asking you to reduce it as much as possible. So if you're supplying to corporates, you might find a distinct advantage in those tendering processes if you can be acting on climate in your own operations. And then finally, another thing I've seen recently, a lot of the bigger companies I'm working with are really wanting to work with smaller companies and social enterprises on really innovative projects. They often find that some of the best ideas are coming out of like startups and SMEs, and they don't have the internal capacity to come up with some of those really innovative ideas. So you might have seen Tesco has just announced it's working with an organisation called Loop on refillable packaging. So there's some really cool opportunities with that as well. So I'm already 15 seconds over, sorry. But in summary, there's lots of reasons why big businesses are working on climate, and I think some of those things like minimising risks, making the most of opportunities, and engaging with people and doing the right thing really apply to social enterprises as well. At PwC, we found that cutting our carbon has saved us a lot of money, and it opened up some business opportunities. And also, we're increasingly going to be expecting the smaller companies we work with to be acting on carbon as well. So hopefully that means that sort of giving you a couple of ideas of the opportunities that you might be able to take advantage of if you can act on carbon. And I think that I'll hand back over. Thank you very much.
Fantastic, thank you very much, and thank you to all of the speakers. I'm aware of time, so I think if it's all right with everyone, we'll jump the Q&A here because there's an opportunity to continue talking to panelists in the forum, and we're about to go into breakout rooms, so there's an opportunity for you to talk in those as well. So Bella, if you wouldn't mind, we are now going to move across to breakout rooms for 10 minutes to talk about different topics and use Jamboards to make notes and hear from a couple of experts in those rooms as well, so thank you.
Okay, everyone should just get a little pop-up now, so you can just join the breakout room. And if you don't receive a pop-up, you're going to stay in this room for the breakout. And this is going to be group 3, so this is resource efficiency and recycling. Okay, I think we're there. I think that's everyone.
Hi, so I'm going to share with you a link to the Jamboard for this session, which I hope you might have seen already in the emails that's come out. Let me just quickly pop that into the chat. And if you would like to take 1 minute to just have a look at that and to note down any initial thoughts, any questions, anything that pops into your head from this, and then we'll get stuck in with letting you talk to each other. If you haven't used Jamboard before, I can perhaps just quickly screen share and show you how. So you click on the sticky note button, open it up, start writing. And then when you're finished, you just press return and it goes onto the Jamboard and you can do another one. Can't see anyone typing immediately, so should we make a start? On this call we have Christopher, Elvis and Chrissa. I don't know if you'd like to say a couple of words about your organisation and what you're doing, because some interesting stuff, and I saw a blog about new work that you're doing in the last couple of days, so that'd be great. Thank you.
Sure. Hi, my name's Cressy. We founded our particular social enterprise in 2005, and the main reason we started it was because London's old fire hoses were going to landfill, and we thought that was terrible. So we decided to bring them home, turn them into beautiful things, and then we donate 50% of the profits to the firefighters charity. That started a pattern. So we now collect 15 different waste streams, and the goal is always to dramatically increase value and then give half of the money away. And I suppose I'm in resource efficiency as a breakout because we really don't waste anything and we don't use any new materials. And the savings, the only metric I can really give you to show you how powerful it is to not use anything single use is that, or even any new materials, is that in the world of manufacturing, you generally have two costs. You have your raw material costs and your labor costs. In the world of luxury, it's 50-50. So the leather and all of the other zippers and materials will cost you 50% and the labor will cost you 50%. I only have 50% of costs. So this whole material cost world has disappeared. Now we have a bit more labor to make up for that because our sourcing is a little bit more challenging, but effectively we save 50% of the costs compared to pretty much any of our competition. And that means no embodied carbon, no embodied water, and none of the wider environmental issues that are associated with new goods. So it can be quite powerful to be ridiculously efficient. And then we've spread that through our entire business. So I definitely have a lot of stories on this. But it'd be great to hear who else is in the group.
Would you like to introduce yourselves? Yasmin, Mindy, where's Ralph? Thoughts, questions? Tell us a bit about who you are and what you do.
Hi, yeah, I'm Mindy. I run a forest school business based in Cheltenham in Gloucestershire. So yeah, the whole concept is to build communities where children, are connecting with nature, and and then building that love for nature, and and then seeing the need to protect it, and sort of that, fitting that into the whole big picture of the fact that they are then going to be looking after and caring about what's going to happen to the world in terms of climate crisis, and you know, feel that they're able to do something about it, and they know what they're doing and what they're protecting. So that's, yeah, so I'm based outdoors. We have a small woodland, and there's lots of woodlands that I work in locally. I'm looking to set up a conservation group, so that children can learn about you know, what they need to do, you know, why woodlands are important, what there is in ancient woodland that you know, that we need to protect, and why we need to protect it, and how and what difference they can make within that. So that's, yeah, that's me.
Hi, I'm Yasmin. I run Ethical Stationery. We're really passionate about looking at the source of supply with our everyday FM products that we would use in the office. So with COVID, for example, it's been a really challenging time. To give you a kind of recent example, we've procured sanitizer made in the UK. We've looked at what plastic it comes in, looked at whether it's recyclable, whether it's refillable. And we've been doing this for a really long time. So my passion is looking at really good stuff, where it comes from, how it arrived, who made it, tracing it back, and just looking at the whole supply chain from start to finish. I'm really kind of, you know, taking out that whole myth of our industry is just so rife with products shipped in from China and the US, and so much greenwash. There's so many recycled products that we think might be green, but just because it says recycled, you know, we look at, for example, recycled paper, if it's pulp that comes from China and the US and it's been chlorinated and then it goes back and forth and it comes back here under a recycled guise, is that really green? And so we've done lots of research papers on this. If you check out our website, there's lots there and happy to share. But we're finding a real change now. I don't know if you're finding it too, but through this time and through the tough times, you know, we have a platform now for change, really. We've seen how devastating things can become, our economy, you know, and all the things that are going on. But also it's a time to say, let's stop, let's start again, let's reduce our consumption, let's really look at whether we need something or not. You know, do we need 10 pens, or do we need, Mindy, I must get some pens over to you for you and your children, but we manufacture a pen that is completely certified biodegradable. So it's made from cornstarch, and it's really robust, and it has seeds at the end, and when you plant it, the whole thing biodegrades, and it's been checked out by Greenpeace, and we have all the research and the science and the stats behind it. So that would be a lovely promotional pen, or a pen for the children to inspire, or, you know, another pen that's refillable and fit for purpose for the office. So as you can see behind it, this is my mum. So our social mission is dementia dolls. It's a personal thing to me. My mum had dementia for a very long time. And the homeless, you know, that's, you will see us, we're a complete non-profit, we're a cooperative, and everything we do is about making good business to give every single penny back. I don't do it for the money, I do it purely for the love and the giving. And it's growing, and people are recognizing it. And yeah, we're in a good position. So, and thanks to SE UK for all your support with the PPE, and, you know, all the leads that you reached out to various people. We had an influx of inquiries and retained a lot of those amazing people. And it's just lovely to work with like-minded souls.
Thanks,
So,
that's nice to hear.
no, honestly, incredible support. Thank you for that. And yeah, really amazing. But I guess this chat is about the environment, and it's just, I've been a greenie for a very long time, and from being a complete polluter, by the way, and it wasn't always it hasn't been natural to me, but because our business is all about consumption, isn't it? People buy stuff, and for us it's about not pushing stuff, about pushing the right stuff and longevity. Yeah.
Thank you. We've only got a couple of minutes left, I'm afraid.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's all right. Wes and Ralph, it would be lovely to hear from you if you'd like to say something.
Of course, yeah. Yeah, my name is Ralph. I work for a company called Useful Project. We are a kind of sustainability consultancy in the built environment. So we work on those big projects nationwide, up and down the country, that consume vast amount of materials and generate vast amounts of carbon emissions. And yeah, climate change and yeah, anything related to that topic is really quite important to us. We're part of a group of companies called the Useful Simple Trust, which is an employee ownership organization as well. So we actually have a lot of a lot of power in our organization to also say where we're going and what kind of projects we want to work on and what kind of projects don't really align with our values. And so, being a social enterprise, we're a very strong advocate for social value in infrastructure projects and large construction projects up and down the country. We've just published, or we've just worked with the Institute of Civil Engineers on a big research project, which has just been published, which is talking about exactly that, embedding social value in those projects. So if you're interested in that, have a look. That's where I'm going to stop.
Thank you. I'm afraid we're already out of time on the breakout rooms as well. Not enough time for all the things that we want and need to talk about. But I am going to hand over to Charlie to wrap up now, and then we'll be going over to the forum in a few minutes. So there is an option to continue conversations there.
Hi everyone. Yeah, thank you. I hope that was useful. And given the way conversations are continuing, there's clearly more to discuss and more to be getting on with on the forum. So as I said at the start, really, I mean, I think we're very much building our work in this space, and for us to tell a great story, we rely on getting great stories from you. So your inspiration and innovation and amazing things are the things that enable us to tell it. So if you are doing something that you think is new or interesting or groundbreaking, please tell us. Let us know what you're up to. Equally, if you need help, if there's more we can do to share best practice, share good things that are out there doing things like this, then again, please do talk to us. We're there for you and there to help. So yeah, hopefully that was really useful. Look forward to continuing the chat on the forum, and thank you very much to everybody for attending today, and in particular thank you to our speakers for their excellent contributions, and to Emily and the team at SUK for organising it and bringing it all together. So thank you very much, everyone. Glad you found it useful. Please do continue the conversation. Please do keep speaking to us, and we'll catch up with you all very soon. Thank you very much and have a lovely afternoon.
Thank you, Charlie, and thank you to everyone that's taken part and everyone who was involved providing information in the breakout sessions. Fiona, would you like to quickly explain how the forums work? There's a link on here. You've been sent a link on an email. Fiona or Bella, would you like to just quickly explain how the forum works for people that haven't logged into it yet, so they know where to go to continue the conversation?
Yeah, so if you follow the link to the forum, then you can sign up and make an account, and we've got someone on hand to verify it straight away. So you should be able to immediately be verified and go and continue the questions. And there's an environment thread. So if you find the environment thread, then you can put your questions there. For those who are leading the facilitation in the breakout rooms, if there was any common themes or anything interesting that was discussed that you think the rest of the group would be interested in hearing, then please do start a thread across there as well. So the rest of the group and everyone else in the forum as well can have access and continue those conversations. I mean, the forum is very much peer-to-peer support, so we want you guys to support. One of the things that came out of our quick wins session was about sharing knowledge and supporting each other, and this is the purpose of the forum. So it's an ideal platform to go and help each other out. So yeah, we'll see you over in the forum.
Thank you. Thanks everyone. See you there.